The one standing in her place had a different plan. A plan that would make her regret ever thinking she could use me. A plan that would peel back every secret she thought she could hide. A plan that would expose the truth she never wanted me to find. Because that night, when she demanded money, she revealed more than she intended. She revealed panic. She revealed desperation. And desperation always means one thing: someone is hiding something worth uncovering. So I waited for her next move. And oh, she made it. At 8 in the morning, just as the sun began rising, I heard the sound of tires screeching in front of my house. A car door slammed. And then, the pounding. Fists hitting my door like they wanted to break it down. And her voice, rage-filled, frantic, terrified of something she wasn't telling me, screamed through the wood. "Mom! Open up. Now!" I walked to the door, each step steady, each breath slow, each heartbeat whispering the same promise. "This time, you won't break me. This time, I'll break the truth out of you." And when I finally opened that door, the look on her face, oh, it told me everything. Things she never planned to confess. Things she desperately hoped I'd never discover. Things that would turn this simple request for money into a full spiraling avalanche of betrayal, secrets, lies, and vengeance so precise it would leave her begging for forgiveness she would never receive. Because the moment I saw her eyes, I knew she wasn't just asking for money. She was running from something. And whatever she was running from was coming for both of us. But she had no idea I was about to turn the tables. No idea I was about to dig deeper than she ever expected. No idea I was about to uncover the truth she'd buried so far underground she thought even God couldn't find it. She pushed the door open with trembling hands, her face pale, her breaths shallow, her voice cracking with a fear she tried to hide. "Mom, we need to talk." And I smiled. Slow, cold, certain. "Oh yes," I whispered. "We do." Because she didn't know it yet. But this was the beginning of her reckoning. And I was going to make sure she felt every step of it. Every lie. Every betrayal. Every manipulation. Every consequence. This wasn't just a mother's revenge. This was justice. And unlike her, justice doesn't ask politely. It arrives. And now, it was standing in my doorway. You know that sinking feeling when silence suddenly becomes heavier than words, when the world seems to tilt just a little because something inside you finally clicks into place. That's exactly what washed over me the moment I lowered that phone and stared into the dark. You don't recover from a call like that, not when your own daughter speaks to you like a stranger demanding ransom. And as I sat there, breathing in the sharp cold of my empty kitchen, I realized something I should have seen years ago. My daughter wasn't just drifting away from me. She was sprinting towards something dangerous. Maybe someone dangerous. Because no child demands $3,000 at 3 in the morning unless they're in deep. And no daughter who still respects her mother would ever scream at her like that. Why was she panicking? Why that number? Who was she with? And why did I feel like the truth was sitting right outside my door, watching me through the dark? When you're 63, you've already survived enough storms to sense when a new one is building. And as I rose from that chair, something sharp and solid settled inside my chest. This wasn't just a daughter making bad choices. This was a daughter hiding something. Something she thought I wasn't smart enough to uncover. Something she believed she could manipulate me into paying for. But I wasn't the old fool she thought I was. I stood, walked to the living room window, and pulled the curtain back. The street was quiet, washed in that bluish-gray glow that comes only hours before dawn. But the odd thing. A car I didn't recognize idled across the street. Dark. Engine on. Windows tinted. Lights off. And every hair on my neck stood up. Why was a car watching my house at the same exact time my daughter demanded money she claimed she urgently needed? Was that a coincidence? Or a connection? Because what child calls at 3 in the morning unless someone is standing beside them, telling them what to say? I blinked slowly, keeping my breath steady. People underestimate old women. They don't realize age is just seasoning on instinct. And my instinct screamed, "You're being watched." I didn't move. Not yet. I let that car sit there another 10 seconds, then 15. And finally, like it knew I had seen it, the engine revved low, and the car rolled away. That wasn't random. That wasn't innocent. And that wasn't good. I whispered to the empty room. "What have you gotten yourself into, Elena? And why am I only now seeing it? And maybe you're wondering right now, why didn't you call her back? Why didn't you check if she was safe?" Because mothers know when their children are in danger and when their children are the danger. I needed the truth, not another performance. So I didn't call. Instead, I walked to my bedroom and pulled out the small lockbox from under my bed, the one with the documents nobody thinks old women keep. Birth certificates, medical history, old diary pages from when Elena was younger. And the envelope I prayed I'd never have to open. Sharp handwriting. One sentence. One warning left behind years ago by someone I trusted. If she ever starts taking money you don't understand, check the people around her, not her. I had always wondered whether that message was paranoid. But tonight, I felt its weight differently. My daughter wasn't alone in this mess. Someone was using her. Someone was speaking through her. Someone was pulling her strings. And I needed to know who. As the first line of sunrise threatened the horizon, I put on my coat, grabbed my keys, and stepped outside. The air was cold and wet, thick with the smell of early morning frost. There was no trace of the car anymore, but footprints in the dew marked a path that didn't belong to me. Fresh ones. Heavy. Leading toward the side of the house. So someone had come closer than I thought. I followed them, heart steady, breath tight. They stopped right beneath my daughter's old bedroom window. Meaning whoever stood here earlier wasn't watching the street. They were watching me inside the house. Watching my reaction to the phone call. Watching whether I'd run, panic, or obey. But I didn't run. And that was going to be their first mistake. Because as I turned back toward the front door, something caught my eye. A tiny folded paper, weighted under a stone on my porch. Small enough that someone wanted it to be seen only by me. I picked it up, unfolded it, and felt my stomach harden. Another message. Handwritten. Not by Elena. Pay the money. Don't ask questions. Don't tell anyone. No signature. No explanation. Just a command. Did they think I was weak? Did they think I was desperate for my daughter's love? Did they think the fear in my bones would turn me obedient? No. Not this time. I lifted my chin, slid the note into my pocket, and stepped inside. And for the first time that night, something like fire woke up inside me. I had been patient for too many years. I had forgiven too many times. I had ignored too many signs that my daughter was slipping into a world I didn't recognize. But whoever was controlling her had just stepped into my world. And I don't lose in my world. Not anymore. I made myself a cup of tea, sitting at the table where hours earlier I had trembled after that call. But now the trembling was gone. Now there was clarity, precision, resolve. And when my phone vibrated again, I knew exactly who it would be. Elena. No doubt furious that I hadn't transferred the money. No doubt ready with a new excuse. A new lie. A new emotional dagger. But I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel fear. I felt something sharper. I answered the call, keeping my voice steady. "Morning, Elena." Her breathing hit my ear fast, furious, shallow. "Mom, why the hell didn't you send the money? Do you have any idea what you've done?" Instead of panicking, I asked, "Who's with you?" Instant silence. Then a voice I had never heard before, low and calm, spoke from the background. "Tell her it's none of her business." My heart slowed. My pulse steadied. The enemy had shown himself, even just a little. "Put him on the phone," I said. Another pause. Then a scoff. Then the line disconnected. And I smiled. They were sloppy. They slipped. They showed me their presence. They revealed their fear. Now I had a trail. Now I had a target. And as I set the phone down, I whispered, "You have no idea who you're playing with. And you have no idea what I'm willing to do. Because revenge isn't born from anger. It's born from revelation." And I had just uncovered my first piece of the truth. But the next part, the reason Elena was with them, the reason the money mattered, the reason a stranger thought he could order me around, would be far darker, far deeper. And when I uncovered it, someone was going to regret ever stepping into my life. Someone was going to pay. And it wasn't going to be me. Because what came next wasn't fear. It was retaliation. And it would start with the very next step I took. You know that moment when a mother stops being afraid and starts becoming dangerous? When love twists into something sharper, something that no threat can soften. That's exactly what happened the second that phone call went dead, and I was left staring at my reflection in the kitchen window. I didn't see a helpless 63-year-old woman. I saw a storm that had finally decided to hit back. And if Elena's mysterious friend thought silence would scare me, they didn't understand the kind of woman I used to be. Before motherhood softened my voice and life taught me to swallow my battles. They didn't know the version of me that still lived beneath the wrinkles and gray hair. They didn't know I had once survived a world far darker than theirs. A world I walked away from to give my daughter a gentler life. But maybe walking away had been a mistake. Maybe it had made me look too tame. Too easy. Too comfortable. But comfort was gone now. I picked up my coat, slipped that strange handwritten threat into my pocket, and walked out the door as if every step was a promise I would soon collect. Because if they were bold enough to watch my home, if they were confident enough to pressure my daughter, then they were arrogant enough to leave traces. And arrogant people always leave traces. I locked the door behind me and stepped into the cold morning. The sky was still smeared with pre-sunrise gray, the kind of light that makes everything look colder, quieter, more unforgiving. I walked toward the street where that mystery car had idled the night before. No cars now. No voices. Just the faint smell of engine exhaust still clinging to the air like a memory that refused to leave. But I wasn't looking at the road. I was looking at the pavement. The dew was faint, but fresh enough to reveal the faint tread of tires. Not just one set, two. One from the car that waited. And another set from a car that had parked briefly beside it, then left in a hurry. 2 cars. 2 people. 2 forces working together to steer my daughter into something I was only just beginning to understand. I knelt beside the tracks, fingertips grazing the marks the car made. Heavy tread. Deep grooves. Not a small sedan. Something bigger. Something used by people who needed to move fast yet blend into neighborhoods. I knew the type. I knew the pattern. I knew enough to see this wasn't a random drunk friend or some foolish teenage influence. This was organized. Not professional, but organized. And that made things infinitely more dangerous. I stood up, tightening my jaw as I crossed the street. The sun had begun to rise, turning the sky dull gold. From inside my pocket, my phone buzzed again. But this time, I didn't answer. Not yet. I needed control. I needed clarity. I needed to understand the battlefield before stepping into it. Instead, I walked to the one person I knew would tell me the truth. Not because he wanted to help me, but because he owed me. A debt he never paid back. A debt I never asked for until today. His shop was 3 blocks away, tucked between an abandoned laundromat and a pawn shop with flickering neon. He opened early, always had. People like him never slept peacefully. I stepped inside the small, dim shop that smelled of dust, metal, and secrets. He looked up from behind the counter, shock flickering in his eyes before he masked it behind a cold smile. "Well," he muttered, wiping his hands on a rag, "if it isn't the ghost of my past." "Hello, Victor." My voice was steady, controlled. "I need information." He snorted. "Isn't that funny? Last time we spoke, you told me you wanted nothing from this world again. Now here you are." "Everything changes when your child is in danger," I said. His face shifted instantly, not with sympathy, but with recognition. He knew what kind of danger I meant. Your daughter? Yes, I said. Someone's using her. And they left a warning for me to pay them. I need to know who's running around here using scare tactics near my home. He didn't dismiss me. He didn't laugh. He stepped closer. What exactly happened? I handed him the note from the porch. His eyes narrowed as he turned it over. This handwriting. I've seen it before. I didn't breathe until he continued. This is one of Marcus's boys. The name hit me like a cold slap. Marcus. A name I never wanted to hear again. A name tied to a past I buried so deep Elena never even sensed it. A man who used manipulation like oxygen and threats like casual greetings. A man who poisoned everyone he touched. A man whose influence stretched through clubs, bars, underground circles, everywhere someone vulnerable could be taken advantage of. Why would he be near my daughter? I asked, voice steady even though my insides were ice. Victor shook his head. Not him. He wouldn't show up himself. This handwriting belongs to one of his runners. But if they're circling around your girl, then she's either valuable to them or they're using her as leverage for someone else. Leverage for what? That's what you need to find out, he said. But be careful. Marcus is dangerous. He ruins lives for fun. And he never forgets old connections. I swallowed hard. He doesn't know I'm still alive. Then you better keep it that way, Victor said, handing the paper back. Because if he finds out, he'll use your daughter to get to you. The room felt smaller suddenly. Colder. Tighter. My daughter wasn't just in trouble. She was in the hands of someone I escaped decades ago. Someone who had every reason to want revenge of his own. Silence stretched between us before I finally turned to leave. But Victor's voice stopped me. You're going after them, he said quietly. Aren't you? You know, there comes a point in your life when you think you've seen enough storms to handle whatever thunder rolls your way. But life always finds a new way to strike. My name is Isarabila. I'm 63 years old. And if you're hearing this, it means you're about to discover how a quiet old woman like me can turn into something far more dangerous when pushed too far. Before we begin, tell me, where are you joining us from, and what time is it where you are? I ask because time matters in this story. Every minute drips with a secret. Every second ticks toward a reckoning someone never saw coming. And if you're listening right now, I want you to stay close, because what I'm about to tell you, it begins with a phone call that shattered the last peaceful moment I had left. You might think you know your own child. You might believe that after raising them, feeding them, protecting them, sacrificing everything for them, you'd understand who they really are. But sometimes, the child you think you know is nothing more than a stranger who learned how to use your love like a weapon. That's what I learned at 3 o'clock in the morning, when my phone lit up with my daughter's name. And something in my chest tightened, because calls at that hour don't bring good news, they bring storms. I remember opening my eyes, hearing the faint buzz again, and thinking, why is she calling me now? Is she hurt? Is she in danger? Is something wrong? The questions kept piling up, heavy and fast, until I finally answered. And the moment her voice hit my ear, I felt the floor tilt beneath me. She didn't sound scared. She didn't sound hurt. She didn't even sound ashamed. She just said it, like she was ordering food from a menu. Mom, my card declined at the club. Send me $3,000. Right now. Just like that. No explanation. No apology. No softness. No mother, please. No I'm sorry for waking you. Nothing. And in that moment, lying there in the dark, clutching the phone with trembling fingers, something inside me twisted, not because she needed help, but because of the tone. That tone that cut straight to the bone. That entitled tone that told me she wasn't calling her mother. She was calling her ATM. And you don't know the full weight of that unless you've lived it. Unless you've been drained by someone you once held in your arms. Unless you've been worn down by years of giving, giving until there's almost nothing left of you. I took a breath and asked her what on earth she was doing at a club at 3 in the morning. She scoffed. Literally scoffed. Like I was the one being unreasonable. Mom, don't start. Just send it. I'm embarrassed. Hurry. You ever hear a voice that slaps you harder than a hand? Because that's what her words felt like. She wasn't embarrassed about being irresponsible, or reckless, or wasteful. She was embarrassed that her luxury experience was interrupted. She wasn't ashamed of the life she was living. She was ashamed of me for slowing her down. Something in me whispered, ask her why. Ask her what she's doing. Ask her who she's with. Ask her how she fell this far. But a louder voice said, don't you already know? Haven't you seen the signs? Haven't you watched her pull away piece by piece, like someone chipping paint off a wall until all that remains is dust? I sat up, turned on my bedside lamp, and looked at myself in the mirror across the room. My reflection stared back, older than I remembered, tired in ways I couldn't name. I saw the woman who worked double shifts, who skipped meals, who spent years bending her spine and her soul to make life soft for a daughter who now demanded money like it was owed. And another thought hit me. Why $3,000? Not 200. Not 500. Not even 1,000. 3,000. At a club. At 3 in the morning. What was she doing that cost that much? What trouble was she tangled in this time? And why was I just now seeing how deep her selfishness had grown? I asked her calmly what happened. And the way she exhaled, sharp, annoyed, like I was inconveniencing her by caring, nearly made me crumble. Mom, stop dragging this out. Just send it. I don't have time. She didn't have time. I pressed my hand against my chest, trying to steady my heartbeat. But the longer I listened to her, the more something cold and clear began to rise inside me. It felt like clarity wrapped in ice. The kind that comes after years of ignoring what's right in front of you. The kind that whispers, enough. Still, I asked the question, because I needed to hear the truth fall from her lips. Why do you need $3,000? What did you spend that kind of money on? She hesitated. A beat too long. And hesitation is a language of its own. Yes, there was something she wasn't telling me. Yes, there was something she wanted to hide. And yes, whatever she was involved in, it wasn't innocent. Mom, she finally snapped. Just do it. That was the moment. The split-second moment where the final thread between us frayed. The old me, the mother who always caved, always gave, always tried to keep peace, would have folded instantly. But the woman staring into that mirror at 3 in the morning wasn't that mother anymore. She was someone who had been pushed, dragged, and bruised emotionally for far too long. And right then, a thought slid into my mind so quietly I almost missed it. Why does she think she can speak to you this way? Why does she think she can use you? And more importantly, who taught her she could? I steadied my voice, even though my heart was pounding like thunder in my ears. No. The silence that followed could have frozen the ocean. What did you say? She whispered. I said no. She exploded. Yelling, swearing, calling me selfish, calling me useless, calling me a terrible mother, things no child with a soul should say. And the more she screamed, the clearer everything became. She wasn't asking me for help. She was demanding control. And she was angry because she feared losing it. I finally hung up. Almost immediately, she began calling again. And again. 15, 20, 30 times. My phone buzzed so violently I thought it might crack. Then the messages rolled in. Dozens, then hundreds. Threats. Manipulations. Guilt trips. Cruel words she would never dare say to anyone else. But the more she pushed, the more calm I became. You don't understand that calm unless you've lived through enough chaos. It's the kind of calm that comes right before a storm breaks open. It's the kind of calm that tells you revenge is no longer a thought, it's a destiny. I turned off my phone and sat in silence, trying to catch my breath. But as I stared at the empty room around me, something strange happened. For the first time in years, I didn't feel weak. I didn't feel small. I didn't feel afraid. I felt aware. Sharp. Awake. Because if she thought this was just about money, she had no idea what was coming. Her messages continued long after I silenced the phone. And I knew it wasn't over. I knew she would show up at my house. I knew she would scream in my driveway. I knew she would try every trick she had ever used to make me bend. But she had no idea that the mother she planned to manipulate, the mother she planned to drain dry, was gone. Yes, I replied. You're too old to fight Marcus's people. I paused at the door. I'm too old to be afraid of them. I walked out before he could say anything else. By the time I stepped into the morning light, the sun had fully risen, painting the street in pale gold. But nothing felt bright. Nothing felt warm. Everything around me trembled with a tension only I could feel. Now everything made sense. The money. The panic. The stranger speaking in the background. The car watching me. The silent threat on the porch. This wasn't about Elena's reckless behavior. This was a trap. And I had just stumbled into the beginning of it. As I walked home, my phone buzzed again. But this time, it wasn't a call. It was a text. 10 a.m. The Red Lantern Club. Come alone. Bring the money. I stared at the message, the world narrowing around me. Now I had a place. Now I had a time. And now I had a decision to make. But the truth? The decision had already been made the moment they threatened my child. I reached the house, walked in, and locked the door behind me. My hands didn't shake. My breath didn't stutter. My fear was gone. All that remained was purpose. Because if they wanted me at that club, then that's exactly where I was going. Not with fear. Not with money. But with something they weren't ready for. A mother who had nothing left to lose. A woman who once escaped the darkness, and could walk back into it without trembling. And as I stood in my kitchen, the message burning a hole in my phone, I whispered, "You wanted me alone? Fine. But you should have thought twice before putting your hands anywhere near my daughter." Because now their world was about to collide with mine. And I don't go into darkness without taking someone down with me. I woke up the next morning with the kind of heaviness in my chest that only comes after a night of truth. And the kind of truth that doesn't leave you the same person you were before. The house was silent. The kind of silent that presses against your ears and makes you feel like you're underwater. My daughter had school. My husband had already left for work. But my mind hadn't moved an inch. It was still replaying the moment my daughter admitted she saw her grandfather's post. The moment my childhood wound had burst open like it had been waiting decades for fresh air. I sat at the kitchen table with my hands wrapped around my mug, even though the tea had gone cold long ago. The world outside the window was waking up. Cars starting, birds shouting, neighbors moving about, but I felt detached from it all. Like I was watching life from the outside of a window someone had forgotten to clean. That post. That caption. Look at this failure. It had carved itself into my bones when I was a girl. But hearing my daughter say it out loud, hearing how she had repeated it, internalized it, buried it inside herself, that was something else. That was something unholy. The man who raised me wasn't just cruel to me, he had managed to wound my child, too. It wasn't only about revenge anymore, it was about breaking a cycle that he had built this family on. A cycle of humiliation, shame, and emotional neglect disguised as tough love. I didn't even know what tough love was supposed to look like, but I knew it wasn't that. It wasn't plastering your child's failures online for entertainment. It wasn't turning your kid into the family laughingstock. It wasn't making sure the entire neighborhood had a front row seat to their insecurities. I shouldn't have been surprised he did it to me, I shouldn't have been surprised he did it again. But somehow, I still felt blindsided. By afternoon, when my daughter got home from school, she walked into the kitchen with her backpack still slung over one shoulder. Her face was careful, too careful for a child her age. That's the thing about kids who grow up around broken adults. They learn how to read silence like it's a second language. "Mom, are you okay?" she asked. I forced a smile. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just tired." She didn't believe me. Of course she didn't. "Is it because of what I told you yesterday?" she whispered. I paused. "It's because of what he did. Not because of you." Her shoulders softened, but only a little. "Mom, am I a failure?" she asked suddenly, as if the question had been waiting behind her teeth. And in that moment, I swear something inside me cracked so loudly I felt it in my spine. "No," I said immediately. "You are not a failure. You are smart and brave and creative and incredibly strong. You are everything I ever wanted to be, and more." "But Grandpa said." I don't care what he said. My tone surprised me. Sharp, almost cutting. My daughter blinked. "He was wrong," I said again, this time. "He was wrong when he said it to me. And he's wrong now." She looked at me for a long second, then nodded, as if she wanted to believe me but needed something more. Something heavier than words. That's the moment I knew. I couldn't just protect her, I couldn't just heal myself, I had to make sure he never hurt either of us again. Not with his posts. Not with his words. Not with his poison. I had spent a lifetime letting my father define the narrative. He had controlled how people saw me, the clumsy girl, the disappointment, the embarrassment he liked to parade around as if I was some kind of running joke. And he had started doing the same to my daughter. Not anymore. That night, after dinner, when the house went quiet again, I finally stepped into my office, locked the door, and turned on my computer. The screen glowed in the dark, illuminating my hands as I rested them on the keyboard. I didn't shake, I didn't hesitate, I didn't feel guilt. I felt clarity. Because I knew something my father didn't know. I had proof. Receipts. Screenshots. Videos. Recorded calls. Years of documentation of how he talked to me. The belittling, the mocking, the passive-aggressive jabs, the jokes that weren't jokes at all. He thought he owned the narrative. What he didn't know was, I had been keeping my own story all along. Every insult. Every brag about being a real parent who knew how to toughen kids up. Every time he admitted he humiliated me, to teach me a lesson. I had it all. But that wasn't the part that sealed the deal. No. The part that sealed the deal was the folder my daughter had given me. The one she said she had found while cleaning her tablet. A folder full of screenshots from his Facebook, comments from people mocking her, laughing at the video of her falling during her first school play. A video he had no right to post. A video he uploaded before she even had the chance to laugh it off or brush it away. He had weaponized her innocence, he had done to her what he did to me. And suddenly, it wasn't just revenge. It was justice. I clicked open the video editor software I hadn't touched in years. My fingers hovered above the keyboard, and then, they moved. Clip after clip, screenshot after screenshot. Audio files layered with timestamps. Every humiliation. Every moment he treated us like props for his entertainment. I didn't have to exaggerate anything, I didn't have to dramatize or add fictional flair. His own words were enough. I didn't make the video out of malice, I made it out of truth. And truth is the one thing my father had never been able to control. Hours passed before I finally leaned back in my chair and watched the finished video. It wasn't cruel, it wasn't slander, it wasn't revenge porn of shame. It was simply the truth, arranged in a way that made it impossible to ignore. And when the final frame faded to black, I whispered to the empty room. This ends with me. The next morning, instead of posting it, I saved the video to a drive. Because revenge wasn't supposed to be petty. Revenge wasn't supposed to be impulsive. This had to be precise. Calculated. Timed. And when it dropped, it had to drop so hard that the echo would reach every corner of the family tree. Later that day, I got a call from my sister. "Did you see Dad's new post?" she asked. I felt that familiar chill crawl up my spine. "No," I said quietly. "What did he post now?" "Oh, you'll want to sit down for this." I didn't sit down. I walked to my laptop, opened Facebook, refreshed his page, and there it was. A fresh new post. A new caption. And this time, it wasn't about me. It was about my daughter. My hands curled into fists. He had just declared war. And he had no idea what I had ready for him. I didn't even have to click the post to know it would change everything. My father had always been predictable in his cruelty, always choosing the moment when it would sting the most, always picking the softest part of a person to jab. And this time, that soft part was my daughter. I opened the post anyway. The image was a freeze frame from her school science fair, the moment her volcano model had tipped over before the judges arrived. She had laughed it off that day, embarrassed but light-hearted. She was proud of her project, even if it didn't go perfectly. But now the picture had been twisted into something ugly. The caption. I guess failure runs in the family. My chest burned. Not with shock. Not with hurt. But with a calm, cold clarity. He had taken an innocent moment and turned it into a public humiliation to a child. His granddaughter, he didn't even blur her face, he didn't even think. He just posted it. The same way he had posted mine decades ago. I stared at the comments, adults laughing, distant relatives making jokes, old neighbors chiming in with things like, just like her mother. History repeats itself. Poor kid, she never had a chance. My daughter wasn't online yet. Thank God. But kids always find out. Screenshots always get around. The internet never sleeps. I closed my laptop with shaking hands. For a moment, I just stood there in my kitchen, letting the weight press against my ribs until breathing felt like swallowing gravel. The clock ticked. A car drove by. Life outside continued like nothing had shifted. But inside me, something ancient snapped. A thin thread I had been clinging to since childhood, the hope that maybe one day he'd soften, maybe one day he'd apologize, maybe one day he'd change. That hope died right then. And what replaced it was purpose. Pure, undiluted, laser-cut purpose. My daughter walked in a few minutes later, humming, unaware of the storm unraveling behind her. She looked up at me. Mom, you okay? I swallowed. Come here. She walked to me, and I dropped to my knees so we were eye level. Sweetheart, I need you to know something. What? Nothing your grandfather ever says about you is true. Nothing. You hear me? Her brows knitted. Did he post something again? I hesitated, just enough for her expression to fall. Mom, she whispered, please don't lie. So I didn't. Yes, I said softly. He posted something. She stared at the floor. Is it bad? Yes. She nodded slowly, like she had been expecting this moment for longer than I wanted to admit. Am I really a failure? She asked again, the same question she'd asked days before, but this time, there was a tremor. This time, it hurt. I lifted her chin. You are not a failure. Not now. Not ever. Your grandfather is wrong. He's been wrong his entire life. Her eyes glistened. Then why does he say it? Because broken people break others to feel whole. And he's as broken as they come. She exhaled shakily. And I pulled her into a hug. One of those long hugs where you hope your arms can shield someone from the entire world. As I held her, I made a decision. No more damage, no more silence, no more protecting him because he was family. Family didn't do what he did. Blood didn't give him license to destroy. I stood and grabbed my keys. My daughter blinked. Where are you going? To end something, I said. Something that should have ended years ago. She seemed worried, but I kissed her forehead. I'll be back soon. As I left the house, the cold outside slapped my face like a wake-up call. The sky was gray, the heavy kind, the kind that felt like a lid on a boiling pot. I got in my car and drove, not fast, but with a steady determination. The route to my father's house was muscle memory. Trees, lights, neighborhoods. Every turn felt like traveling backward through my life. By the time I reached his driveway, my hands were warm with adrenaline. His house looked the same, beige siding, trimmed bushes, the porch chair he never sat in. Everything in perfect order, except the man living inside. I knocked once. He opened the door with the same irritating half-smirk he always wore, the one that said he was waiting for me to disappoint him again. "Well, well," he said. "If it isn't the drama queen." I walked in without asking permission. He closed the door behind me with a scoff. "What's your problem this time?" "You posted about my daughter," I said, turning to face him. He shrugged. "Kids bounce back. Don't be so sensitive." My hands curled without me choosing to. Sensitive. The word he had thrown at me my entire childhood. "I didn't give you permission to put her image online," I said. He rolled his eyes. "It's Facebook. It's family. It's just a joke. Maybe if she didn't mess up so much, there wouldn't be anything to laugh at." There it was, the poison. The pattern. The same damn script. "You humiliated her," I said. "Just like you humiliated me." He chuckled. Chuckled. "It taught you strength, didn't it? Look how tough you turned out. Is that what you think you did?" I asked, voice low. "You think you built me? You broke me, Dad." His face twitched. Just a flicker. "You exaggerated everything," he muttered. "You always have." I took a step closer. "She's a child." His jaw clenched. "She needs to toughen up." "No," I said, steady. "You need to stop tearing down your own family to make yourself feel big." He snorted. "Are you done lecturing me?" I stared at him. Really stared. The man in front of me wasn't a giant. Not anymore. He was small. Emotionally, spiritually, morally, a man who had nothing but pride holding his fragile structure together. I took a deep breath. "No," I said quietly. "I'm not done." I pulled my phone from my pocket and pressed play. His voice filled the room. Cruel comments he thought were private, recordings I had collected over the years, every insult, every mocking remark, every time he bragged about humiliating me to keep me humble. His eyes widened. Where did you get that?" "You said those things," I said. "All of them. And I recorded them." His face paled. "Just slightly, but enough." "You can't use that," he snapped. "I already have." His breath caught. "Use it where?" he demanded. I looked him straight in the eyes. "You'll find out soon." For the first time in my life, he didn't have a comeback, he didn't have a jab, he didn't have a smirk. He looked scared. Just a little. But enough. I turned and left, the silence behind me heavier than any shout could have been. Back in my car, my heart was pounding. Not from fear, but from the certainty of what came next. Because that video I created, the one with his words, his posts, his humiliation exposed? Oh, I wasn't planning to post it randomly. No. I had a better plan, a plan that would make every ounce of pain he caused echo back at him. And that plan was already in motion. I wish I could tell you that I drove home calmly, that my heart had softened, that my father's fear was enough for me. But that would be a lie. The truth. The real truth? I felt something igniting inside me. Something sharp, something righteous, something that had been waiting decades for daylight. Every mile I drove, the fire inside me burned hotter, clearer, cleaner. My father wasn't just going to learn a lesson, he was going to face everything he had built with his own hands. Every insult, every humiliation, every smug joke he made at the expense of his own family. And it was all going to come crashing down on him. Because revenge, real revenge, isn't loud. It's precise. When I got home, my daughter was sitting on the couch with a blanket around her shoulders, waiting for me even though I told her to sleep. She looked up with a question in her eyes. A question I answered with a quiet nod. "You did something, didn't you?" she whispered. "Yes," I said. "And I'm going to finish it." She swallowed. "Mom, is he going to hurt us?" "No," I said. "Not anymore." She stood and hugged me, not like a child hugging their mother, but like someone who needed to hold on to the certainty that the world still had adults who could protect instead of destroy. And in that hug, my purpose hardened into steel. I went to my room, turned on my laptop, and opened the edited video I had been crafting for weeks. Yes, weeks. Because deep down, I always knew my father would cross another line one day. A man like him doesn't stop, a man like him escalates. So I had prepared. The video was 14 minutes long. 14 minutes of his comments, 14 minutes of his humiliations, 14 minutes of his own voice tearing down his daughter and mocking his granddaughter. I stitched together every screenshot, every voicemail, every Facebook post, every text message. His words, his pattern, his cruelty. But the masterpiece wasn't the damage he did to me. No. It was the timestamps of when he posted things about my daughter. The comments he made. The time he mocked her artwork. The time he joked that she inherited stupidity. The time he said she'd probably end up like her mother, average and embarrassing. His voice said all of it. Not mine. Not someone else's. His. When the video ended, I played the last line again, the line I knew would break him. You know what the problem is with my daughter and granddaughter? They can't take a joke. Life would be easier if they learned to laugh at themselves. Maybe one day, they'll thank me. I stared at the screen and whispered, No, Dad. Nobody thanks the person who destroys them. Then I uploaded the video. Not publicly. Not yet. I sent it directly privately, to 3 places that mattered most. 1. His workplace board of directors. 2. 3. The family Facebook group he worshipped more than his real family. 4. 5. His church's community council, where he pretended to be a wise, compassionate elder. 6. The video had a subject line. The man you think you know. I hit send. Then I turned off my notifications. Not because I didn't care, but because I wanted the silence to soak the moment. Like the quiet before an earthquake. And oh, the quake came. Around a half hour later, my doorbell rang. It wasn't a visitor. It was the beginning. My aunt, my father's sister, stood on the porch, phone in hand, tears on her cheeks, and anger burning behind them. Is this real? She demanded, holding up her screen. He said every word, I replied. She shook her head in disbelief, stepping inside without waiting for permission. I knew he was rough, she said. I knew he had an edge. But this is sick. She wasn't the only one. By the hour mark, 2 cousins called me. 3 nephews messaged me. A neighbor texted me saying, I had no idea. His church friend wrote, we are calling an emergency meeting. And his job's human resources department emailed asking for further documentation. The truth wasn't just out, it was multiplying. By morning, the family group chat he always dominated, the one where he bragged about everything from his lawn to his barbecue, had 187 unread messages. Most of them were anger, shock, disgust. And none of it was directed at me. My phone eventually buzzed with the name I had been expecting. Dad. I didn't answer. He called again. And again. 9 times. I let all 9 ring. No silence is louder than the one a guilty man hears from the person he can no longer control. Eventually, he left a voicemail. I didn't want to listen. But I did. His voice trembled, not with sadness, but with fear. Real fear. The kind he once forced me to swallow as a child. What did you do? He rasped. Why are people messaging me? Why is the board calling me? This is out of context. You're ruining my reputation. You're ruining my life. I stared at the wall as his message hissed through the speaker. And then came the part that made my stomach turn. You're overreacting. You always overreact. Just take it down, and I'll pretend this never happened. We can talk about your daughter. I stopped the recording before he finished. Because I knew exactly what was coming next. He would blame me, he would minimize everything, he would claim he didn't mean it. He would say it was just jokes. But jokes don't work when the audience stops laughing. By the end of the day, he was suspended from his position at work pending review. His church asked him to step back from leadership. His siblings confronted him. His friends stopped replying. And the post about my daughter? Gone. Deleted. Vanished like it never existed. But it had existed. And the consequences were real. He showed up at my house that evening, banging on the door, calling my name. I just want to talk, he shouted. My daughter froze. Mom. It's okay, I whispered. I opened the front door only a few inches, keeping the chain locked. He looked deflated, messy, thrown off his pedestal. His voice cracked. You made everyone hate me. No, I said calmly. You did that. He gripped the doorframe. I just wanted you to be strong. You wanted me to be quiet, I corrected. There's a difference. He exhaled shakily. Please, take it all down. No, I said. His eyes widened. Why? Because the truth doesn't disappear just because it's inconvenient. He swallowed hard, lowering his voice. So this is revenge? No, I told him. This is accountability. Revenge is what comes when someone refuses to take it. He blinked, confused. Then what is this? This is me protecting my daughter, I said. Something you never did for me. He stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time, not as the child he controlled, not as the daughter he ridiculed, but as the woman who finally stepped out of his shadow. You ruined my life, he whispered. No, I said softly. I just stopped letting you ruin ours. He stepped back, shoulders trembling, and for the first time, he had nothing to say. He left. He didn't slam the door, he didn't curse, he didn't threaten. He just walked away, silently, slowly, like a man carrying the weight of his own choices. And that silence was the real ending. Days passed. Weeks. Months. My father faded from the spotlight he once forced us all to orbit around. He still lives in the same house. Still checks Facebook 10 times a day. Still waits for someone to comment, tag him, message him. But nobody does. In the end, the thing he valued most, attention, became the one thing he lost forever. And me. I didn't post the video publicly, I didn't shame him on social media, I didn't blast him to strangers. Because revenge isn't about destroying someone's world. It's about making them face the world they built. My daughter and I moved forward, we healed, we grew stronger, we learned that silence isn't peace, it's punishment. And sometimes the most powerful revenge is simply telling the truth out loud. So now, if you're listening to this story, ask yourself, where are you joining us from, and what time is it where you are? And more importantly, if someone tried to tear you down your entire life, how far would you go to finally stand back up? Because sometimes, justice isn't loud, revenge isn't violent, and strength isn't inherited. Sometimes, strength is chosen. And we chose it.